and welcome to Talk of the Stacks. I'm Christy Pearson with Friends of the Hennepin County Library. Tonight, we are thrilled to have local music legend Mary Lucia with us to celebrate the launch of her debut memoir. But first, on behalf of the library and Friends, we would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that in Hennepin County, we live and work on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Dakota people. By offering this acknowledgement, we commit to recognizing Indigenous nations and to the ongoing work of reconciliation. Thank you. Well, I'd next like to recognize our generous sponsors who helped make this free series possible. Many thanks to LSC Architects, Knorr Companies, and the Minnesota Star Tribune. So let's give them a hand. This winter, Friends had the opportunity to create a short video about the library's increasing impact thanks to the support of friends like you. Well, tonight we are thrilled to continue its rolling world premiere. So please sit back and enjoy.
When you think of a library, you think of it as a very quiet, silent place, and it's anything but that. No day is the same, but every day you hear a positive story about the role that we played in someone's lives.
Friends of the Hennepin County Library is the library's nonprofit fundraising partner. We raise awareness, appreciation, and financial support for our 41-location, nationally acclaimed library system.
When you walk through our doors, you can see the impact of the programs supported through the Friends of the Hennepin County Library.
Through a community of nearly 10,000 supporters, we fund vital programs, resources, and services across 4 areas: student success, youth development, community outreach services, and of course, our beloved collection. Our student success area includes our Let's Read literacy initiative for K-5 students and after-school tutoring through homework help for kindergartners through 12th grade.
We are really passionate about books here and can't think of a better space to be providing that reading support than the library. The biggest transformation is the resilience of the kids. They go from thinking, I can't do this isn't for me, to I'm proud of myself for trying.
We had 97% of our children last year report doing better in school, and most importantly, 98% of them reported having more confidence in their schoolwork.
I have learned to like and appreciate school more. Homework help is a very nice, safe, comfortable place for anyone.
Our youth development programs are bringing thousands of young people into libraries. They're learning new skills, taking part in STEM programs. They are in a space where learning is cool.
The goal of this program is to build community with teens, to encourage them to be creative through technology. I see a lot of growth here with teens. To me, it's just an amazing place to be.
We also have community outreach services. Not every person can walk into the physical library space, and our library tries to meet the needs of all residents by reaching out into the community and beyond. The library is for everyone. This past year, we had 4.8 million people walk through the doors of our Hennepin County libraries and 12.3 million checkouts. Both of those are the highest totals in more than a decade.
The library should be a place where we come and we know that there's hope, that there is a future for us, and that we all matter. We are one of the premier library systems in the country. That needs to be sustainable over time. I hope that we can continue our outreach, continue to serve the communities, and I hope that we can continue to provide a safe place for all of us in our community to come and dialogue openly, to share our views and ideas, and most importantly, to continue to explore our individual passions, our individual dreams.
We would not be able to do the work and fulfill our mission without the financial support of the Friends.
And that's why Friends has pledged a record $4 million to the library in 2026, which is a 60% year-over-year increase to help our library not only survive, but thrive. No matter where you are in your life, no matter who you are, there is something here for you. Every single person who walks through the doors should not only feel welcome, but they should feel like they belong and that the library is for them.
Thank you. Now, as you can see, the library is expanding its impact even deeper into our neighborhoods and communities. At a time when we all need it most, our library is here for you, me, and our fellow neighbors. So tonight, I'd like to share my gratitude with all of you for being here and being library champions. And now, here to introduce our tonight's guest is our Friends Board member, Mohammed Lal. Not only is Mohammed a super friend and a super fan of the library, he is also our board president. And he has done many renovations to our beautiful libraries, including the spectacular, historic Sumner Library renovation that happened recently. Please join me in welcoming Mohammed to Talk of the Stacks.
Wow, look at this. Thanks everyone for that warm greeting. It's always an absolute pleasure to be here at Talk of the Stacks. You all are a great group. Our libraries play a vital role in community, culture, knowledge, and discovery. I continue to be enamored every day by the power and impact that free public libraries make on our everyday lives. Proof evidence. I was recently at the Starfield Library in Seoul, South Korea, in an indistinguished mall called the COEX Mall. It's one of the most sought-after tourist sites in all of Seoul. While I was there, I sent Scott Dimstra a selfie. It was of me and about 1,000 other people behind me. And it simply said, Minneapolis Central Library. This is what we are. For our 41 Hennepin County libraries, we had 4.8 million in-person visits in 2025. The home attendance for professional sports teams in Minnesota last year was 3.5 million visits. Yep. Okay. So part of my travels, I'd like all of you all, if you don't have it, to get your Hennepin County Library passport. I'd like you to post selfies of yourself visiting each one of our libraries, and let's get over 5 million visits this year, okay? I just love our libraries. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce this evening's special guest. Tonight's moderator, Chris Riemenschneider, is a local music critic at the Minneapolis Star Tribune. He has been covering the Twin Cities music scene since 2001, and he also authored the book, First Avenue, Minnesota's Main Room. Tonight's guest of honor, Mary Lucia, is a media broadcast personality, a writer, an actor, and a voiceover artist. She worked at The Current from 2005 to 2022, where she was well known for her unconventional style and expansive music knowledge. She's currently the program advisor at the University of Minnesota's Radio K. At the end of last year, Lucia released her debut memoir to wide acclaim, What Doesn't Kill Me Makes Me Weirder and Harder to Relate to. Now a finalist for the Minnesota Book Award, the memoir chronicles her harrowing 3-year ordeal with a terrifying stalker, applying her signature dark humor for a read that is courageous, raw, and relatable. Please join me in welcoming moderator Chris Riemenschneider and our special guest, the incredible, chromed out Mary Lucia, to the Talk of the Stacks.
All right.
Hey, Mary.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Yeah, yeah. Congrats on the book.
Thank you.
I'm going to do a little intro of you.
Yeah, okay.
You know, not everybody, I think most of the people here know your story, but been just a huge, scene maker of our scene, a huge bright light in the scene, going back to, you got your start in radio at Rev 105 and kind of riding the early 90s alt rock boom that was so crazy, and you guys made it even crazier. And from there, you along the way, you started a really great interview series, Popular Creeps, sort of a podcast before there were podcasts.
It was.
Yeah. And then you went to The Current, 2005, and the rest is history. Most of it good. And you also, along the way, you were a columnist for The Rake and Dispatch. I told you I thought your writing was absolutely terrific back then, and lo and behold, that's proved tenfold here with this book.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you're one of my favorite interviewers, so it's a little intimidating interview.
I'm the Q. I'm the Q, not the A.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about you is you were so great at kind of throwing curveballs and spitballs at these musicians that sometimes here the publicists only want us to ask certain questions and whatnot. But I'm going to ask you what's probably the most predictable question to ask an author, right up there with who are your influences if you're interviewing a musician. But why did you want to write this book? And maybe why the hell did you want to write this book? Because it's I guess for those who don't, they said it's just this really dark, scary story of you being stalked, and the frustrating experience of trying to get help, and how difficult that was. I don't know why I wouldn't want to revisit that myself. Why did you want to explore it as a book?
That's a great question. I don't think that I was so far removed from the trauma at the time. I was in it, and I knew that if I didn't produce something creatively out of that experience, it would have been for nothing. I mean, I was in basically a paralyzed state for 3 years. I couldn't talk about it. A lot of the legality prevented me from speaking about it, and so it literally silenced me. And I guess this book is definitely an opportunity to use my voice and to say, this is what happened. And when I kind of put my head around the idea of pitching a book, I knew it wasn't going to be just 250 pages about the trauma, because I am the darkest person you will ever meet, humor-wise, and it's just in my blood. So I knew that I was able to counter a lot of that with some pretty ridiculous stories. But and I think writing a column and being on radio, there's a certain economy to the way I speak and also the way I write.
Sure. It's been out a few months now. What has the reception been like? I mean, it's gotten great press and everything. That's been great. But I mean, from other people who have had I don't know if anyone's had a similar experience to you, but vaguely similar experience to what you had. Also, anybody that's that's mentioned in the book as doing something right or wrong. I mean, just amongst those people, what sort of reception have you gotten so far?
I mean, mostly it's been really interesting to see which part of the story people are more identifying with. Or, I mean, obviously, not a lot of people, thank goodness, have been in that position of being stalked. And I realize you don't know what that feels like, and I hope that I was able to express some of the just absolute horror and what it does to a person's psyche. People that I worked with, of course, some of them were aware of what was going on, but not all of it, because I didn't really talk about it. I couldn't. And it just, I guess for me, the reception has been very, very encouraging because people definitely, I think they appreciate the respite from the terrible story with some of the more twisted things in my life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some twisted stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you approach that? I mean, what the structure of you're something just horrible. There's just some horrible details in here, and then you know a couple paragraphs later you're laughing.
Okay, I'm going to reveal my my inspiration, which is so left field, but. Did you see The Last Dance, the ESPN documentary about the Chicago Bulls? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
The way that was put together is how I love, if you're going to recall things in the past, yet keep things present, there's this sort of, it's a skill. You have to absolutely be aware that you're telling a narrative, but it's not going to be linear. You're going to say, and then it's kind of tangential. I mean, I definitely have experienced trauma. For example, I lived in an apartment building and I had a record collection, Chris, that was, I felt like it defined who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had, you know, every record I'd ever bought, been given, records from my family, everything. And I had probably moved 900 times in 3 years, and everyone hated the call when I'd say, who wants to help me move? And so at this particular apartment, I had my entire record collection in a storage space in a basement. And I went down to do laundry one day, and there was a sign on the bulletin board, and it said, hey, whoever has storage space number 11, a pipe broke over your storage space, and I don't know when it broke. And it was one of those things where it was like going to the morgue and identifying a corpse. I looked kind of around. There was some chicken wire. I got the gist, and I was so devastated. I turned around and walked away. I was like, I'm not going in there to examine to see what's salvageable. And it was literally, I really felt like a part of me drowned with that. And so many well-meaning friends and people have said, oh, don't you want to start a new record collection? Come on. And I'm like, no. I left that behind. I literally left it there. So, and that was trauma, but it's in different ways.
Yeah. No, that you do write about that in the book, and that is one part I think I teared up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was horrifying, yeah.
Yeah, talking to the insurance adjuster, well, I had renter's insurance. I was responsible, but trying to insist that copy of Cocksucker Blues from the Rolling Stones was worth a lot of money. This square was like, well, we'll give you $200 for the whole thing. And it was like, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, there's a we were warned that there's some kind of statewide tornado thing that we're not. That's not the censors because you said Cocksucker Blues off the stage now. That's a statewide thing. So, what was your writing method as you sat down to do this? Where, when, how would you kind of do it?
I left the Current in the spring of 2022. And it became my job, my full-time job. I would get up in the morning, I got dressed. I don't own pants with elastic waist. I work for a living, so I just would get in that office and I would just start writing. And it wasn't really, I mean, I don't know if you had this experience too, but I've talked to different authors who say that, man, that book by the editor got their hands on it, they cut it in half. And that was pretty much what happened with me too. But it was a really fun process to be a first-time author of a book and working with some really great editors who really understood me. I never felt like I had to over-explain anything, so I was very lucky that way.
Yeah, yeah, oh, great. Let's talk a little bit about how difficult it was for you to be taken seriously, to find the necessary, to get law enforcement to take it seriously. Is it just because it was such an unusual thing, or any explanation for that in hindsight? Or
I believe that the law enforcement has a better understanding of domestic stalking, and that's when it's a person you know, a former wife, husband, landlord, whatever. So right out of the gate, the fact that I was this person on the radio, it was a listener, I had no idea who it was, and literally didn't know the person's name or identity for so long. So I almost honed down my speech because I was calling 911 so frequently because all of that nightmarish stuff that had been sent to the radio station made its way to my house, including him in my yard, all of this. And so I got my spiel down to a real quick, concise 2 minutes right when they'd come up. But they always looked at me with this sort of, come on, lady. And, you know, there were times where I felt so frustrated. One example, I didn't sleep well during this time, but I heard just this thunderous crash and broken glass sound, and I thought, oh God, is he in my house? And I went downstairs with my phone, my Louisville Slugger, and I called the cops. They came pretty quickly, and I'm standing just with glass shattered all over my front stoop, and the two responding officers came, and the first officer said, that's an illegal light bulb that you have. And I thought, oh, okay, so that was one. On another occasion, called and two responding officers came, and I was going into the spiel. This person doesn't know me. They've heard my voice, and the officer looked at me and said, are you sure you're his type? You know, and it became, I mean, frankly, the working title of this book at one point was just Nothing Works, because it was no one. I could literally not get help from anyone, not from my work, not from law enforcement. I mean, it was just, I've never felt so isolated in my entire life.
And then when somebody did finally help, there's a line in the book that I just stopped and it took my breath away with. You say in the end, the only people that did help you, coincidentally or not, were all women.
Yeah, I mean,
any explanation for that? I mean,
well,
just
no.
I mean, beyond men's emotional inadequacy, emotional idiocy might be the way to put it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it truly it came down to again, I had a crash course, and I mean, and I realized that law enforcement, they're not social workers, and they're not, you know, they're profilers in a sense, and I just started to accept that no one was going to understand this, take it seriously enough, help me, until a woman named Sergeant Darcy Horn from the Minneapolis Police Department showed up at my door and sat at my dining room table. We had coffee, we talked, she looked at me, she listened to me. She never looked at me like I was nuts, and it was a revelation. I felt as though this was after about 2 years of this. So the first person, that actually seemed to take it seriously was her.
Yeah. And you, I mean, even some of your own family did not, although some of them, one of my favorite stories in the book is your brother coming over to a very serious effort to trim back your trees and bushes to make it, you know, not so dark back there and everything. I mean, I don't want to give that away, that plot twist away, but
well, yeah,
there's not going to be any vans going around town with Paul's tree trimming service on the side.
I just know that, he was like, do you want this to look like a person lives in this house? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, you got to cut these trees back. Well, I'm thinking he's going to come over with some sort of apparatus to cut branches. Instead, he just, like a monkey, climbs up a tree and just starts swinging on dead branches. And the whole time I'm on the ground, just kind of plotting out the closest emergency room, like, this is not going to end well, but, you know, well-meaning, of course, and I think that was a thing that a lot of people that were in my life, the ones that did have some empathy, they felt pretty pretty helpless as well to help me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the work situation. You wound up taking so I don't know if you would call it a sabbatical, because it's not like you were resting up or anything.
No. It was like a leave of absence that was ostensibly to deal with the impending court case, which then just got pushed back and changed and pushed back. So it was about 4.5 months I was away from work.
Yeah, yeah. How hard was it to go back?
It was difficult because, a lot of people, again, very well-meaning, say to you, well, man, aren't you glad that's over? And it's never over, and it was certainly not over then. I went back to work even before we had the actual date in court. So it was difficult. They put some pressure on me to come back to work. I thought maybe a little early, but it was sort of tracking with how they had been sensitivity-wise throughout this whole experience.
Yeah, yeah. Can I read about that part?
Please do, yeah, go ahead.
Or do you want to? Or?
No, I don't have my glasses.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, actually, I don't either, so this could be interesting.
Might be better.
This is what Mary writes about the company she worked for. A company that is so concerned with optics didn't seem to think it was important to get too involved with, quote, my problem. Never an offer of legal counsel to navigate this mess. And trust me, if there's one group employed by them that makes bank, it's their lawyers. Any suggestion that I was in this mess because of my job was dismissed. I was maybe their highest profile employee, which is true. I was maybe their highest profile employee, which came in handy when asking for monetary contributions. I was publicly being humiliated and very much tied to their brand. While I understood that stalking can happen to anyone, if I had worked at Radio Shack and this happened, would I be left to my own wits to fight that?
Yeah, there was a large part of me that felt that this was a workman's comp injury, because I felt it was an on-the-job injury. I mean, it started there, and maybe that was my mistake to think they would have some some skin in the game, that they would really try to lend a hand. And I do believe that corporation is very interested in keeping the storefront very clean, and maybe I was just too messy, and that story was too messy. But it was everywhere, and it was difficult because there were certainly friends I had there that were very, very kind, and some that even showed up in court. But, when you're talking about the people who employ you, just having really kind of off the cuff, or just really, I said in the book that the first time that that this person came to my house, it was a whole different feeling. And for whatever reason, I called my then manager at home on his cell phone, and through my trying to relate the terror of him having just been in my yard, he was pumping air into a basketball through the entire conversation. And again, it's like all these things where I kind of feel like I did cut a lot of slack to people, because I get it. If you haven't been in this situation or known someone, you probably don't know what it feels like. Sure. But it wouldn't have been difficult to just ask me what was happening, what it was doing to me.
Yeah. And I mean, not to just single out NPR. I mean, but my employer, we've dealt with some of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Never anything like that. But yeah, you kind of get promoted out there, pushed out there to interact and be. And 95% of the time, it's great. There's some weirdos out there.
Yeah, and I have had. Since I started, I have had unwanted listeners. And so that was not brand new. Yeah. I mean, the level to which this case took it was far more extreme. But from as early as my Rev 105 days, I had, somebody leaving notes on my windshield wiper in the parking ramp. I mean, that's just creepy in itself. And yet I was 22, and maybe I didn't have the language or the wherewithal to, or maybe it was just a different time, I don't know, but it didn't feel as threatening. And then the way this person escalated the stalking, it had a very ominous threat always that I was in deep, deep trouble and that he would be the only person that could help me. But while saying that, he was making the threats of what could happen to me and my dogs. And it had some religious overtones to it. And some of the things that showed up at my house, I mean, and this is an interesting thing because when it hit the news and even the Strib and other people reported about it, of course I realized they couldn't actually get into the nitty-gritty of what was being left on my doorstep or thrown in my yard. So it came out like a listener gave Lucia a candle and some flowers, which made me look like a lunatic. So I was like, oh, if you only knew. So, I mean, some of the things were even just hard to imagine how physically this person managed to get a pile of black dirt put on my step with a sympathy card with a cross on it sticking out of it. I mean, just the imagining in my head of how did you do this? And of course, I was completely perplexed at that point too. How do you know where I live? And one very kind officer said, well, don't worry about that. He probably just followed you home from work.
Yeah. God. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then eventually you just decided to throw in the towel.
I kind of felt like, you know, it comes down to this, and this is my basic understanding, and that is that my trauma was real.
Yeah.
His delusion was just as real. So it was as real to him as my trauma was to me. So we're talking about a mental health issue, and oh man, does that get gnarly, because courts are very hand-tied. They don't know how to handle if somebody is mentally competent or not. Then you have to go through the process of figuring out if they are. And that affects the sentencing. I mean, for me, this was a 3-year experience. I went to court, gave my impact statement, first time ever talking in the same room with him. And he got 5 years probation and walked out the door right along with us. And he broke that. He never showed up for, you know, his parole at all and continued the behavior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was the lowest point?
Well, I mean, well, I'm an idiot, and I thought, like, this would be a great time to get clean and sober. Like, most people think, oh, my Lord, I'm going through the worst time in my life. I've got to self-medicate. And I, for some unknown reason, decided that was the day I'm just going to kick everything alone at home. And I was a responsible drug addict. I took time off from work, like 4 days to detox at home. And I mean, there was no way to write about detoxing from drugs that hasn't been said and said better, but that was bad. And a lot of people didn't know. And, you know, again, there's a lot of things I've been really forthcoming about, both on air. I've shared a lot of things personally, but some things I didn't. And I mean, that might be a surprise to a lot of people that I had a serious opioid addiction. So, yeah, just kicked that at home. That was fun. And then, you know, and then went back to work, you know, and again, that whole business as usual thing, it's like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. I think your last on-air shift, I mean, you know, on the local scale, microcosm local scale, it was kind of a Ed Sullivan, Beatles on the Ed Sullivan thing for us. It's, you know, just a historic day radio-wise. You do have some of the, you include the playlist of what you, at the back of the book, which, I mean, you can make a playlist out of that, I think.
Well, you know, and what's interesting about that is that, you know, everybody thinks I was this crazy renegade and burned the place down. It's like, I handed in that playlist like 2 days before. They knew what I was going to play,
Well,
you know,
let's not downplay. I mean, Margot Price Pay Gap, that's a little...
If the shoe fits.
That's, well, yeah. You know, there's, and obviously you got some of your favorites on here too, like Spoon, Mavis Staples. So yeah, it was, Was it good for you?
Well-
I mean, we all, as much as we hated seeing you go on, that was just a glorious moment of listening. Was it good for you?
It was emotional. As I got closer and closer to, I was on 2 to 6, and as I got closer to 6 o'clock, I could feel my throat closing, and the emotion took over, and I realized I wasn't leaving a job, I was leaving a career, and one that I had loved and in some ways felt almost forced out of, but in keeping with all the amazing empathy. So my last song plays, I'm gathering up my personals, I've got tears in my eyes, and one of the managers came up to me and said, well, we turned off your key card, so you got to take the stairs because you had to take it for the elevator. I'm like, fine. So I'm carrying my things out. I'm like, here. We walk down 4 flights of steps together in silence. We get to the lobby, and he says, yeah, leave that card here, or they'll charge you $20. And I thought, I have been here 17 years, and there's not even a sheet cake. Like, it was like...
Yeah.
Wow, I got perp walked out of that place, and it was very, very confusing. So I walked out the door, and I was really emotional, and my phone was blowing up, and I thought, it was mostly maybe my friends saying I listened, that was great, but then it was also my coworkers saying, 1 minute after 6 o'clock, my manager was fired, and I have no idea. And people think still I have no idea what happened there. They let me leave, and I still don't know. It's a mystery.
Yeah, I had to report on that.
Yeah, what'd you say?
And you know, honestly, trying to look at it from both sides, as we sincerely do. I mean, my take on it, I said this to someone, is I wouldn't want to have to be Mary Lucia's boss, the person that makes you go to a marketing meeting or fill out your TPS reports or whatever. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to be the boss that not only let Mary Lucia go out the door, but that maybe perhaps pushed her out the door. Did you feel like any sense of vindication, or?
You know, it's weird because, I mean, when you sit down to write something like a memoir and you're going to be perhaps showcasing other people's shortcomings, I do believe it's imperative to lead with your own shortcomings. So it's not as though I set out to embarrass somebody, but I've said this before and I stick to it, that, you know, these just happen to be the people I worked for, or the people that were around this case. And if they had been different people, I would have written about them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good. But I mean, you know, let's look at the bright side of that. You did 17 really great years on the radio.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. What are you most proud of?
Interviews. I
Yeah,
think that when the station first launched, and I held that afternoon drive spot throughout the whole 17 years, but I think they were always terrified. They were never really sure, like, okay, this is the music station, and there's classical, and there's news, and I say it in the book, we were still referred to within the company, the current, as the third service the entire time. So
Yeah.
gives you some idea. So, but for whatever reason, the first couple of years, the program director at that time thought all the interviews should happen during afternoon drive. So subsequently, I did end up doing the majority of them. And a lot of them were live. And you know this as well as I do, but there's nothing natural about walking down a hallway to meet 7 people for the first time live on air and have that conversation broadcast. I mean, there's nothing natural about it. So if I was able to get something going, that was always great. I even loved the interviews that were just train wrecks, because I thought, that's interesting to listen to, I would imagine.
Yeah. That is. Those are kind of my personal favorites, just because I experienced those. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Who is your favorite?
My favorite, I've had so many, but let's see. I guess Robin Hitchcock, who's a real, just an interviewer's dream. Charles Bradley, rest in peace, the Screaming Eagle of Soul. And my favorite story was he came in and he was on tour, and I think he was playing with some of the Dap Kings, were his pickup band. And he'd been on a tour, and so he came in, and he had sort of a later life career, but it was probably as close as you or I are ever going to see James Brown, right? Yeah. So he's in the studio, and I just threw out, as I usually did, well, hey, Charles, do you want to introduce the band? And this look came over his face like it was the first time he noticed anyone was in the room with him. And he just looked over and he's like, well, that's a guitar player, and our guy plays drums. And I'm thinking they're like on a bus, like together, like on the road. But I loved the fact that he had no idea who was in that room with him. But yeah, I mean, there was always like, almost it balanced everything out. When there was a really great one, then there was one that was just a flop sweat,
Yeah. And now you're working at University of Minnesota with Radio K. It's so fun to listen to those kids. It's so I don't know. Well, but at the same time, like I get asked to speak to journalism classes and whatnot, and which is great, but it's kind of like we're sort of a dying industry.
I know.
As is radio. What do you tell these kids?
I tell them that college radio has no competition. So that is a license to be as creative as possible, take as many chances, figure out who you are, because that is one thing that has not changed, that I can still relate to being 19 or 20 and having music shape and inform who I was going to be, and I see that in them. And even if they don't want to continue a broadcast career, which none of them do, by the way, because I always ask, I'm like, does anybody think they might do some sort of broadcasting after graduation? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's smart. But so then my primary focus is like, well, then just take advantage of this time and this freedom and this sense of fun, because if at the end of the day, radio should be fun. And when fun leaves the building, that's when you need to follow it.
Yeah, that's great. Have they turned you on to any hot new bands?
Well, it's always interesting to hear what they're really into shoegaze. Like
it's true.
That's a new thing right now. And then I'll throw something out like, well, oh yeah, you like the Jesus and Mary chain? And they're like, well, what genre is that? And they're really hell bent on what genre is that? And I'm like, good? I don't think that way, but it's so interesting. But there is also, what's crazy for me is that their parents are big fans of me. So it's like,
sure.
To talk to a student who says, oh, I mean, this is all my parents listened to in the car when I was a kid. So it's pretty wild to come full circle like that.
Yeah. No, that's so great that you're doing that. Have you been able to have a semblance of a normal life in recent years?
I think that trauma is how it kind of gets inside of you. And I'll just give you one just strange example, because I think that I've come a long way in so many different areas of my life. But as anybody who lives in Minneapolis, after a hailstorm, all of a sudden all the roof people come out and they're like at your door saying, can I get on your roof and look for hail damage? And I last summer said, yeah, okay. So I let this guy up on my roof, and he did whatever. And then it was like on a Monday, and then Tuesday night I was in the backyard with the dogs, and I saw that my gate was wide open. And I just started crying because and that's not the normal reaction to seeing an open gate in your yard. And I had to compose and think, okay, it was the guy who'd been on the roof. He just didn't close this behind him, but it was amazing how quick I went right back to that place. So when you think you've got distance, some really, really weird things will come up.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You gonna write another book?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Yeah, I think that I think that everybody kind of thought, before they really knew what this book was about, they thought, oh, is this going to be like your big radio tell-all? Oh, that's in there, you know. So that, and that my family is just, every one of them is a lunatic. So I could definitely squeeze out a couple more, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think we're going to open it up to audience questions now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Gowdy. I'm the events director for Friends here. First of all, thank you for bearing with the heat in here. We've switched very quickly from 40 degrees to 80 degrees in Minnesota. We're in a public library building, and we want to thank you for hanging out with us and fanning with your events guides. It's time for the audience Q&A. If you have a question for Mary, please raise your hand, and I will come to you. Oh, we've got one right in the front row here.
It's my first time ever doing this. What is your favorite show you've seen at First Ave?
I would say Motorhead. Yeah. It's one thing to like that band in theory or on record, but to stand there in front of that, it was amazing.
And feel it.
Were you afraid of negative reactions you would get from writing the book, and have you gotten any negative reactions?
I mean, I have gotten mostly very, very positive, positive mixed with people's still disbelief at some parts of the story and that it did go as it went, but no, I haven't. In fact, Carrie Miller invited me to NPR to do an interview. Whew! So I went in and I was like, well, good on her. You know, she invited me, and it was very strange to be back in the building and sitting there as a guest. And then she had her producer come and take me up to her studio, and she said to me, wow, this has just been ages since you were here. You left here when, in 2010? And I'm like, give or take a decade or two. I was like, no, Carrie. But, you know, it was awkward just in the sense that, you know, certainly I'm not taking aim at, you know, I'm going to bring this company down. Like I said, it's just what happened. And those were the people that were in place. And so, yeah, I kind of just feel like, you know, I'm a pretty truthful person, and I just told the truth.
Having been in the broadcast industry in a previous life myself, I sympathize and kind of angry that how you were treated. If it were my coworkers, I would just be livid. But my question is going to be more humorous. You mentioned interviews that were train wrecks or flap sweats, as you said. Can you give us an example, and why was it so memorable?
Oh, God. Well, yeah, there was a band that I thought I was going to have a physical altercation with. I was, for whatever reason, it was this band, and it might have been thrown at me at the last minute, and I really didn't know too terribly much about them. It was like two producers. What the hell were they called? But thank you. And was that Matt Perkins? Yeah. Okay, so yes, and they were in a foul mood, and I got to the point too sometimes in interviews where you have just a finite amount of time, and I'm not a therapist and I can't draw you out of a shell. But if you're in a lousy mood and you're rude, I mean, I usually, my go-to was always, well, let's just get another song and, you know, just move it along. And for whatever reason, this guy was so combative with me, and he had his Ray-Ban bag of anger glasses on, looking right at me. And there was this, almost like this, are we gonna throw, I literally thought, am I gonna have to like throw down with this guy? Because he said something, and then I asked a question, he paused, a train could have run through the pause, and I finally just said, and I probably said this having wanted to say this for 28 years, I said, you know what, I don't care if you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. I have a headache, by the way, so let's just keep this going. And then he got up and he was like, one of our engineers was like, "What are you looking for?" And he's like, "An exit." So he got up and walked out, which was fine. And then I remember my producers were like, "Well, we're not going to air that." And I said, "The hell you're not." I said, "I would be fascinated if I was sitting on an on-ramp and I heard this, like."
Yeah.
So.
Mary, we're in the dead center of the auditorium
All right.
here.
Hi, Mary. My question is, since your interviews are so great, have you ever considered writing like music biographies?
I read them, I consume them at an alarming rate, good and bad. I'm just always interested in somebody else's story. But no, I think of people who've written great biographies, and I think, I don't know that I'd have the discipline to get all the facts right. You know what I'm saying? So probably not.
She did narrate the Trouble Boys, the replacement.
Yeah, all 800 pages of that. Yeah. Bob Mayer is thorough. Yeah.
Mary, what are some of your favorite music biographies?
Oh my God. Well, I'm all over. There's a Victor Bacchus of Lou Reed that I think is one of the best. And there's, again, when it's somebody who's already had their story told so many different times. I just finished the Justin Townes Earl book. That's depressing, but good. And then, oh man, I just read Nico Case's book, and the one book that I am waiting for, and I know that somebody's already written about Tom Petty, but I didn't like it. William Zanes or whatever his name is. Somebody's got to write the penultimate Tom Petty book, so.
We're in the way back of the auditorium.
Yo.
Hello, Mary. Can you shout out a great No Apology song for us tonight?
Oh, man. Yes.
Been a
well,
while.
the thing is that those, I had to make that feature because at the time they wouldn't let me play Slade. And I was like, why? And so I thought, well, all right, I'll make a whole feature around playing a song that no one but me apparently likes. And then, so it's really funny to think that in all of those years, I don't know that I repeated a song ever. So there are so many. And I mean, I am as big a fan of the Partridge Family and the Cowsills as I am of Def Leppard. So take your pick, yeah.
We're in the middle once again over here.
Hi, Mary. What is your favorite Guided by Voices album?
Oh, man. Alien Lanes. Yeah. How about you? Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And we're still in the middle here.
Just a real simple one. Why Potsy?
Oh, it's funny because I never referred to him as that before. I just probably thought in the moment, again, I just need an all-encompassing douchebag name.
And we're a little bit closer to the front.
Hi, Mary. I just want to speak for probably the whole room and being like, you're just a staple. You were, why am I getting teary-eyed? I'm sorry. Like, you were a huge part of my life. So, okay, can you give us, like, your favorite Prince stories since we're coming up on the anniversary, and we love you.
This would be an opportunity to tell a Prince story I've never told. All right. So years ago, REM was mixing a record at Paisley Park, and the producer was Scott Litt, and he was a friend of my brother's who's also a musician, and we drove out to Paisley Park to meet up with Scott Litt, and it was just a really awkward time. Like, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and we were sitting in that atrium just waiting, and we heard click, 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 and we looked up, and it was Prince and Kim Basinger, and
Sure.
And Prince turned to my brother and said, "Careful, she's right behind you," meaning me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You would have been on air 10 years ago when the news came out.
Yeah, it was one
What
of
was
those.
that like for you?
It was one of those things where, when a person of such importance and significance in your life passes away, there's this natural tendency to gather somewhere. And where do you gather? I mean, certainly people went to Paisley and people went to First Ave, but people also gathered to the radio. And that was true for a lot of, I felt like I was sitting Shiva for half of the time I was there. I mean, people happened to kick the bucket 5 minutes before I went on air. I'd have to pull myself together and try to, encompass somebody's entire life's work while eulogizing how much of a loss it was. And the Prince one was I literally drove to work that morning. We were all called in, and I felt like everything looked different. I was driving on 94, a route I'd taken every day that was just, I felt like it looked different. People looked different. It was quieter. It felt like a seismic shift. That's how I felt. And I think that, again, people definitely appreciated the fact that they could at least turn on the radio and hear nothing but that. So, yeah. What's yours, Chris? Your favorite Prince story?
There's the one it's in my tagline where he was playing at the Orpheum. It was with Tamar, was one of his beautiful proteges at the time, and he kind of took over the show, and I just happened to be down front taking notes, and he's playing "Play That Funky Music, White Boy," and says, "Oh, somebody from the Star Tribune here knows the words to this song."
That is great.
I'll take it.
That's great.
Well, we do have time for one more question, but before we do, and I'll head back to this person here to take it, but before we do, a couple reminders. The evening does not end here. Mary will be signing books outside the auditorium at the other end of the bridge. Our wonderful independent bookseller partner, Majors and Quinn, is here, is selling copies of the book, so please buy the book, get it signed. You won't regret it. It's going to be the best friend you never knew. So buy the book. Also, if you parked downstairs in the parking garage, please make sure that you pay for your parking at one of the freestanding kiosks rather than waiting for the exit. You will not be able to pay at the exit. So you're going to stop everyone else from exiting if you try and pay there. So thank you so much for paying at the kiosk. And here we come for our final question.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for doing this. So you said this is the first book you've written. What was the most surprising thing about the process of writing a book?
That I was so willing to I think like I had said, the way I was in radio, in life, I'm somewhat private, but I guess I feel that the problems I had, like addiction and depression and those kinds of things, it doesn't make me special. But the fact that I could just look at it and just say, this is one of 1,000 mistakes or stupid things that I've done. And, I'm still here. And I think that when you write about terrible time in your life, you don't want to be defined by the worst time in your life. So it was very important to me to add a lot of extra jazz about just me and how I think and what I do, because again, this is a very specific and particular story, but I certainly wouldn't want, I would like to knock that algorithm out of Google that when you search my name, his mugshot comes up. So anything we can do collectively to change that would be great.
Amen to that. I think we're done. Yeah, and